Alright guys, so here is my review for Maze Runner The Death Cure. And if you have not seen the previous two movies, there is going to be some spoiler mentionings from those movies. But for this particular movie, I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler free as I can. There might be a possible minor spoiler. So that is, just letting you know that that's your heads up, for especially for the first two movies if you have not seen all of them. So that is your warning. Now, basically, the premise of this movie is where Thomas leads a rescue mission to save Miho from Wicked, and as Wicked's on a quest to find a cure to a virus that has spread across the globe, that has basically wiped out the population. So, and I gotta say, the opening scene in this movie felt very Fast and Furious like if you really sat down and watched this movie, the opening scene, you're like, yep, I feel like I'm watching Fast and Furious. And I don't mean that they're racing, but you have to see the scene. If you've seen all the movies, the Fast and Furious movies, then you know what I'm talking about. Now, the look of this movie, when you get to the last city, the last city is beautiful. I went to see this movie in IMAX, so seeing that on an IMAX screen just baffled my mind. I'm like, wow. I did not expect it to be. I did not expect to enjoy, the look of the city as much as I did. I knew I was gonna like it, but I didn't think I was gonna like it as like 10 times more than I actually thought I was going to. I did, yeah, so it was a pleasant surprise of how much I enjoyed it, and it felt like I stepped in a whole another movie. I didn't feel like I was watching a movie followed up to the Maze Runner at all. It felt very futuristic. And I gotta say, even though this movie was, this movie could have been shortened into 2 hours and 5 minutes. This movie is like 2.5 hours. I feel like they could have cut out maybe like 40 something minutes of the movie for what the movie that they were trying to make. Like, they could have added something, they could have sprinkled a little thing in there in those extra 40 minutes, like let's say, let's have Thomas start to have more of his memories back or whatever, and then they could have done that, but they didn't do that. And then where we could have touched more based on the flashbacks that he did have in the first two movies. Like in the first one, we find out that he did work for Wicked, like where you see in the flashback in the first movie, and then in the flashbacks in the second movie, like where he has flashbacks, I guess, where he gains a memory about his mother, like where he remembers, being taken from her at, from a young age. And then we see that where he's being taken out of Wicked and into the maze in the second movie. Why did they take him out of there? Like, what happened? What did he do? They never shed light on that. These are things they could have thrown into this movie. I get it. It's more focused on the rescue mission, and but they could have thrown that in there since this movie is so long. And I feel like the movie was telling me to read the books, to find out what happens, to find, to get answers, to these questions that I have. But I shouldn't have to do that. They should have thrown at least a little bit of information of what, what was going on that they basically left out in these movies, especially in this one. I'm like, this is like a really long movie. You could have found some way to throw all of those elements in here. That's just it. It's just plot holes. Like the second movie had plot holes. I would have had Thomas, remember more of of who he was, like before his memory was completely wiped out. Like not all of his memories, but more of his memories in the second movie. And let's say we get here where all of his memories are back and he remembers everything. Like as we get near the end of the movie, that's when I would do it. That's just how I would do it. Those are just nitpicks. And I would say that while this movie does rely heavily on the action, but the action is fantastic. It has better action in the first two movies. The first two movies had pretty good action, but here, especially in the third act of this movie, is there's no words to describe it. It is just an emotional roller coaster. It is intense. on the edge of my seat, satisfying action. And while it does heavily rely on the action, and it does have a good story to tell, but it could have been better. And what I will say that what this movie does not heavily rely on, what these other young adult novels, being brought on the big screen does rely on most, is the love triangle. They don't force it down your throat at all. It is there, it's there, and the story does not focus on that. I mean, they'll get to it and then they'll get right back to what the plot is, like back to the rescue mission, so they don't force it down your throat like, who is Thomas gonna choose? I mean, yada yada yada. They don't do any of that. So that's a breath of fresh air. But yeah, I mean, back to the third act. I mean, it is intense. I mean, like, it felt like what a trilogy, like, a tradition in a trilogy is, like, where you revisit what you love about the first movie. And then when we get to the final chapter, where it feels like, okay, the stakes are high, the chips are down, and nobody is safe. That's how I feel in this movie, and that's how I feel like you should handle like the last chapter in a trilogy, like where nobody is safe. It can end any way, like where anyone and everyone could go. I mean, like even the main character does not feel safe. Even you feel like that they are not safe. That's how I felt in this movie, like where I'm like, I don't know what the hell is gonna happen. And definitely I was just like, whatever, I don't know. And while it does feel like they tied some loose ends, but again, back to the plot holes. I mean, they could have thrown in a little bit more here to give us a better conclusion, but it was still pretty good for what it was, but it could have been better. And apparently there is more than 3 books in these stories, but I guess they felt like it would be good to just end it here. But at least they didn't split it into 2 movies. I mean, like, I feel like that it was starting to become overkill when they finally stopped at Hunger Games. So, yeah, I mean, like, just stick with 1 movie. It doesn't need to stretch out into 2 movies, like with this particular chapter. You know what I mean? But they could have made more movies. I mean, they've done that with Harry Potter, where they made almost every single book into a movie. But oh well, I guess this did feel like a conclusion, and I was happy with it. But could have been better, but it was still pretty good, and I enjoyed it more. I did enjoy it more than the second one. The second one had pretty bad pacing, but this one didn't have nearly as bad as the second movie. I mean, the first one had much better pacing than the other 2. But, yeah, I mean, like, I felt like this movie was a pretty good conclusion. But again, it could have been better, and it could have been worse. So, with that all being said, this gets 3.5 chair spins out of 5. So here we go. 1, 2, 3.5 chair. Well, that was almost 4. Okay, here we go. 3.5 chair spins. I keep fucking these chair spins up. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed my review for this movie, make sure you thumb up the video and click subscribe if you're new to the channel. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out, y'all.